your running economy is the biggest determinant of your running performance, or in general, how good you are at running. So what your running economy actually is the oxygen cost associated with running a certain distance at a certain pace. So to set a concrete example, you could have two runners, both running 5 kilometers at around 5 minutes per kilometer. Now, the runner with the better running economy is going to have a lower oxygen cost associated with running that same distance at that same pace, compared to the runner with the worst running economy. He's going to have a higher oxygen cost associated with running the same distance at the same pace. So what you want is obviously better running economy, because you're going to have a lower oxygen cost when you're running a set distance at a set pace. Now, there are 4 main factors that come to mind when it comes to determining your running economy. So the first one is our metabolic efficiency, and this is how well we use both our aerobic and anaerobic energy systems when we're running. So our aerobic energy system is what we should be primarily using. This is when we use oxygen to convert our carbohydrates and fats into fuel to help us with our performance. The other energy system is the anaerobic energy system. This is without oxygen, and instead we use the carbohydrates or fats stored within our muscles to help fuel our performance. But with the anaerobic energy system, when we do this, we end up creating a byproduct called lactic. So if you've ever run like an all-out 800, 1500, or 3K, you know that sensation towards the end of a race where your arms and legs start to feel really heavy? That's the lactic acid accumulating. So that is metabolic efficiency. That is a huge determinant of our running economy. The second factor is going to be our cardiopulmonary efficiency. And so this relates to the ability to bring in oxygen and transport it around the body and use it for our working muscles. Now, the third factor that determines our running economy is our biomechanical efficiency. So how efficient is our form, technique, and overall running mechanics. So this is quite simple. If you have better running technique with your head nice and still, landing right underneath your hip, your arms aren't swinging across your body, then you're going to have better running technique and therefore use less oxygen when you're running. Now, the fourth and last factor is actually neuromuscular efficiency. So this is how efficient our brain is at coordinating the correct technique, form, and proper biomechanical running movements. So the way I like to explain this is that you could have the perfect running technique, like textbook perfect, but if you haven't practiced that, then obviously it's going to be a lot harder to maintain and hold that technique as opposed to someone who's been practicing with that correct running technique for months, as an example. So it's going to be much easier for them to hold that proper running technique biomechanically because they've reinforced it over and over and over and over again. So that's what a neuromuscular efficiency is actually referring to. Now, the good part is that all of these 4 factors, so metabolic, cardiopulmonary, biomechanical, and neuromuscular, can actually all be trained to improve our running economy. So here are some of the 4 main ways that we can go about that. So the first is going to be by increasing our total running mileage. Nice and simple. So just run more per week. And so how this affects us metabolically is that, first of all, we're going to have improved aerobic metabolism. So if you're going to be running increased mileage, the majority of your runs should be done at a nice, easy zone 2, zone 3 conversational pace. And this high zone 2 mileage is going to help you build that mitochondrial density and capillarization, meaning that your muscles are going to be able to generate more energy aerobically, which is what we want. And obviously, if you're doing more zone 2 running, you're going to have a stronger heart and stroke volume. With stroke volume in this case being the amount of oxygen delivered with each heartbeat. And over time, your heart rate is slowly going to decrease for running the same distance at the same pace. Now, biomechanically, with increased mileage over time, your technique is also going to naturally smoothen out. Because you'll find that running long distances of improper technique, it's actually very, very hard to do that. And your body doesn't want to be working hard. It's lazy. It wants to find the path of the most resistance. So what it's going to do is that it's going to naturally find the most efficient and energy-saving method of running those longer distances. And over time, you'll find that, because of that, your technique is naturally going to smoothen out with less wasted movements. And over time, it's going to feel a lot more easier to hold and maintain. So if you were to first start practicing a proper running technique, you'll notice that it requires a lot of mental effort. And over time, as you repeat that, it's going to be a lot easier for you to maintain and hold. Now, the second factor is actually race-paced training. So what this means is that if you have a 5K, 10K, half, or full marathon coming up, you're going to do a lot more of your training at that target race pace that you've set. So if you're targeting a 5K at 25 minutes, for example, so you dedicate a large portion of your training to running at 5 minutes per kilometer. So how this improves us metabolically, So how this improves us metabolically is that regular exposure to our race pace is going to improve our body's ability to tolerate and actually clear lactate when we're relying on our anaerobic or lactic system. Because as you know, in the anaerobic system, we're not using oxygen. Instead, we're using the stored carbohydrates and fats in our muscles. And obviously, if we use those, we create lactic as a byproduct, and you're going to be better at clearing that out. Cardiopulmonary, so our heart, lungs, and blood vessels are actually going to become more efficient at delivering oxygen at our race pace. And biomechanically, our technique at race pace is eventually going to become more efficient. So you'll find one thing is that when you're running at a nice, easy pace, it's a lot easier to hold that nice picture-perfect technique. But as soon as you start to do it at race pace, especially for the first time, you'll find that it's a lot harder to maintain, and you'll find that the form often isn't perfect. So the more you reinforce that and practice that, it's going to be a lot easier to hold that picture perfect form that we want. And the same thing goes with the neuromuscular. Now, the third factor is actually plyometrics. So this is like your jumping squats, your tuck jumps, your depth jumps. So if you're a runner, you definitely need to be doing plyometrics, because first of all, it's going to help you get stronger without the additional increase in body mass. Because if you're doing long distance running especially, you want to be as light and as lean as possible. All that excess muscle isn't going to be helping you that much. That's why plyometrics are really, really good. So in terms of cardiopulmonary, with more efficient mechanics, there's going to be less oxygen cost required for your heart and your lungs at that exact same speed for that same distance. And biomechanically, obviously your muscles, joints, and tendons are going to be a lot stronger, which is going to help you be a lot more efficient when it comes to running. And neuromuscularly, these repeated movements that you're going to be practicing with your depth jumps, your single leg squats, your jumping squats, these repeated movements can help sharpen coordination and reinforce the proper stiff leg mechanics that we want when we are running. And lastly, running technique. Quite simply, you just want to be improving your running technique. So a few things that I like to look for in running technique are head nice and still, arms at a nice 90-degree angle, forearm and the bicep. You want to make sure that we're not crossing our body, because if we're crossing our body with our hands, that means our hips are going to be rotating unnecessarily, which is a wasted movement. When you're landing, make sure we're not overstriding, so you don't want to be landing in front of your hip. Because what's going to happen is that you're going to be applying a braking force if you're landing in front of your hip. And in order to overcome that braking force, you need to exert more force, which is completely unnecessary if you were to just land right underneath your hip, which is also going to create a shorter ground contact time. So obviously with cardiopulmonary, you're going to have a lower oxygen cost per stride, as you're going to have efficient technique with minimal wasted movements. And neuromuscularly, the repeated practice of efficient technique is going to train your nervous system to maintain form with that minimal conscious effort. So these are the four main factors that are going to help us improve our running economy: total running mileage, race-paced training, plyometrics, and improving our running technique. These are all going to help us improve our metabolic efficiency, cardiopulmonary efficiency, biomechanical efficiency, and neuromuscular efficiency.